Now we have to wait. People connecting. Scrolling the assistant.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We are going to wait a couple of minutes until everybody's in and we are going to start. Okay, let's start. Livia, can you start, please? You are muted.
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay. Yep.
So good afternoon. The Young Professionals chapter of the AAPG Brazil wants to start by thank you everyone who is in the room. Have them here motivates us to continue developing activities like this. My name is Lívio Gonçalves, member of the chapter committee. We are also joined by members of the Committee of Young Professionals from Argentina. We reminding the participants that they can ask the questions through the chat room, since we will be sharing them at the end of the presentation. Today we continue with the Ciclo of Offshore talks. The objective of this cycle of talks is to promote the geological knowledge for the exploration of offshore basins, both in Argentina and Latin America. Geoscientists from different companies will join us to tell us about offshore activities in that region. And we will also have the support and participation of the young professionals chapters of Argentina, Brazil, and Colombia. Uh, Today, we will talk about the overview of the Brazilian offshore exploratory history and its current situation. This transmission will be recorded and later uploaded to our YouTube channel, AAPG Argentina. So do not hesitate to look for them and follow them on our social networks. Any comments will be appreciated and well received. Today we have the support of Guilherme Arruda Sowek. Guilherme is a geologist with a master's degree in exploratory geology from the Federal University of Paraná, and with 9 years of experience in exploration production. Experience as an exploration and well geologist work in the pre-salt layer. As geologist of new areas, he carried out evaluations of prospects from the rounds of the National Oil Agency in Brazil. Current work with data analysis and information management at Repsol Sinopec Brazil. Thank you very much for being present today. Once again, welcome to everyone. Before we begin, I want to show the next events of AAPG. So the first one is application of oil and gas industry skills to subsurface, carbon storage, and carbon trading economy in September 23. The next one is deep water sedimentary systems in Bogota in November 10 and 11. The next is Symposium Hydrogen in 2021, December 1 and December 2. The next is Conjugated Margin Virtual Technical Symposium in December 6 to December 8. The next is recent discoveries and exploration opportunities in offshore Caribbean basins in February 23. And the last one is the role of new technologies in amazing onshore and offshore plays. This is a certification of a presentation to Guilherme Arruda. So welcome to everybody.
Hello,
Guilherme, it's up to you now.
I think okay, just a minute. Okay, I think now it's working. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Guilherme. So the idea here today is just giving an overview of the the offshore Brazil, the fields, the basins, where are the exploration, where are the expectations, a little bit about the geology, but just to have a great overview of the basin. If I was going to talk about in detail about the basins, it would take a week or a month, or maybe, depending on the detail, a full year. But here is just to get a greater overview. Voy a hacer la presentación en inglés, pero después con las preguntas yo puedo hablar un poco, sacar las dudas en español, pero yo preparé más para hacer en inglés esta presentación. Então, if someone wants to talk to me, can later on after the talk has some doubts about Brazil offshore, just can write on my email or in LinkedIn. I can answer, no problem. Well, I graduated as a geologist in Brazil. I entered Repsol as a trainee, so I have been in different positions, mainly as geologist in operations, explorations, new areas. And my last position is as information management coordinator, that I manage all the technical information seismic well for Repsol Sinopec Brazil. And I participate in the AAPG Young Professional from 2017 to 2020. I still help them with some talks, some things, but actively I've been these 3 years with them. So let's start with the EMP history. I think it is very important to understand the history of exploration production, to understand how it came to be as it is today in Brazil, because we have a different phases of exploration in Brazil. So I like this one. I made this one just for this talk. These are the main dates until 1997. So the first discovery that was commercial, the first discovery I think it was in 1938, but the commercial, the first one was in 1941, onshore Brazil. And then the government created the Petrobras after the Second World War in 1953. So the Petrobras, well, here is the logo history. They had 3 logos. This is the actual logo. So we have the Petrobras since 1953. And talking about offshore, from until this time, we have only onshore production in Brazil, was just small productions. But then after Petrobras, creation of Petrobras, the exploration beginning to expand to offshore. So we have the first discovery in 1968. And until then, until 1975, only, well, until 1953, only Brazilians could drill something somewhere in Brazil. After, from 1953 to 1975, only Petrobras was 100% the only company that could explore. And then from 1975 to 1997 was only Petrobras could explore anything they wanted, but some international companies, if they want, they can take some risky contracts. They will assume all the risks of the project. They didn't have any benefits. These risky contracts was just a few wells have been drilled by these risk contracts. We normally say that in Brazil until 1997 was 100% Petrobras exploration. And after 1997, Brazil opened to the market, to the international oil companies, and then created ANP. That's our the Petroleum National Agency. Now it's not only petroleum, but oil, gas, and biofuels. But in the beginning, it was just for oil. So after 97 until today, we have 27 bidding rounds from offshore areas, onshore areas. For now, we have a permanent offer that for areas that have been offered in the past. So after 97, we have a lot of activities. Before 97 was just Petrobras of drilling onshore, offshore, but the big area of exploration, as we know today, was after 97. We can see we have like several years of exploration, of bidding routes, and then wells. So this is the main aspects after 97. So we have the discovery of the pre-salt. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the pre-salt later on. After the pre-salt, the government stopped doing bid rounds, so we have some gap of bid rounds, and then the government will start discussing how they will sell or allow people to explore, the companies to explore the pre-salt. So in 2010, they created a pre-salt law delimiting an area of exploration just for pre-salt. And then we have other few bid rounds that wasn't that good. And then we have the first pre-salt bid round was just focused on pre-salt discovery. And then in 2016, everything changed in Brazil. We have a new government and a new ANP board, so the new agency board, so they started doing more rounds for pre-salt and outside the pre-salt area. So they started doing more bid rounds, like 2 bid rounds a year, sometimes 3 bid rounds a year, to give more energy to the exploration. This I'm gonna show why. Just before entering in the more in the history, this is important to explain Brazil because of the pre-salt law in 2010. We have this polygon inside a basin. I'm gonna show the basins later on, but the government created this polygon. So everything that's inside this polygon, that's gonna be on a bidding round, that's gonna be for exploration, to purchase. There is a different kind of contract than everything that's outside. Outside the polygon, everything is concession, that normally we pay royalties in cash, and everything that's inside the polygon, there is a different kind of contract, but in general, we are paying everything that's here, we are paying the government with oil. But there are differences and similarities about the different contracts, but just to explain that everything inside this polygon, all the pre-salt discoveries are inside this polygon, and everything that's explored here has a different contract from what is outside. Now, I really like this graph. It's explaining very well the history in Brazil. I'm plotting here just from 1998. So we have this boom of the graph is showing only offshore exploratory wells. Exploratory is white cat and appraisal wells. So deep water exploration phase in Brazil is starting 2001 with great discoveries by Petrobras. We have several discoveries before, but after 2000 we have way more exploration in this deep water. Pre-salt discovery in 2006, and what happens when Petrobras discovers the pre-salt? Everyone that has blocks nearby this discovery of Petrobras start drilling. So we see an increasing in numbers of well drilled. Most of them, I would say 90%, 90% of what's here is on the basins that are close to the pre-salt discovery. So everyone that already had a block drilled. So as simple as that. But we can see here from 2007 to 2016, we have no bids, no new exploration blocks inside or close to the pre-salt polygon or inside the pre-salt polygon. So what happens that there was nothing left to drill in this basin. So the exploration decreased a lot, and then after 2017, we have more bidding rounds. So we are just starting to recover this. We see that we are jumping from 8 to 5, but the planning for the next years is to increase a little bit more these numbers. Of course, it's not gonna be similar to 2010, 2011, but we are going to be more around 2013, 14, 15 with more exploratory wells in Brazil. Here, I'm talking about production. This red is onshore production. This is percentage. The percentage blue is everything that's offshore and non-pre-salt, and green, everything that's only production from pre-salt. We see that from 2010, well, 2009, we start producing a little bit before, but 2009 and 2010 was the first year officially producing, and then we jumped it for 2021 to 72% of all Brazil production comes from pre-salt. So this just to show how important is pre-salt to Brazil today. Is more than half of all the production in Brazil. Here just now this is including onshore and offshore. Now is just in raw numbers. This is barrels per day and offshore production, only oil. I'm not considering gas because oil is what pays more. So gas is not very important for the pre-salt. The oil nowadays that's important. So this offshore production, in yellow all offshore production, green everything that's offshore and non-pre-salt, and blue is the pre-salt. You can see that we really jumped very fast with the pre-salt production. In the last years, we have some decreases. This is because maintenance in the fields. We have just a few fields producing, so this is why we have this decreasing. But and we have increasing in the last years on the non-pre-salt because Petrobras, that was operator in all the fields, they were selling these fields to other companies, and other companies are starting to reinvest in these old fields. So we have this increase on the non-pre-salt, but the pre-salt in the next years are going to increase considerably because we have more fields and more facilities to enter in production in Brazil. So this is just the overview, the history. So moving to the how is Brazil today? This I took from 2020 ANP from the National Agency presentation. So we divided, well, everyone divided the Brazil exploration production environments like this. The onshore, that's 6%. Well, this is numbers from 2020. Onshore, conventional, offshore. I don't like this name because what's conventional, what's unconventional, I would say non-pre-salt offshore and pre-salt offshore. And we can see that with just 122 wells, this as 2020, we are producing way more than any other environment in Brazil because of the characteristics of the reservoir in the deepwater pre-salt. And because the fields are younger also, because most of the fields in not the non-pre-salt offshore, they are decreasing production because they have several years in production. And onshore we cannot compare because we don't have big discoveries, big fields. These fields are very small, and the dynamics of onshore offshore is totally different. What's economic onshore is not economic offshore. So this is why the fields are producing more offshore. So this is Brazil. We can divide Brazil in two main clusters of basins. We have the equatorial margins that are transformant, geologically, they are transformant basins. That are Foz do Amazonas, Pará, Maranhão, Barreirinhas, Ceará, and Potiguar. And then we have the east margin that we call the passive or distensive margin that goes from Pernambuco, Paraíba through Pelotas. The geology of these passive margins are really similar, and then the equatorial margin between them, we have some more differences, but in general, they are very similar in tectonical evolution. Some of the sedimentary here in the equatorial can be different because of the Amazonas River. Here we have Amazonas River Foz, that the sedimentation here is a little bit different. We have some different kind of structures in Pará, Maranhão, but in general, they are really similar. But when you go to the passive distensive, all the evolution is really, really, really similar. The division of the tectonic phase are the same. We have some difference in sedimentation, but in general, they are really similar. And what we call pre-salt basins are Santos and Campos. Here are the polygon I mentioned before, so all the discoveries are inside this polygon here. About production, just to give an importance of the pre-salt basins, I'm not saying all, but almost all the production comes from Santos and Campos. Santos 99%, 99%. So 99% come from the pre-salt, and Campos we have a division between pre-salt and what we call post-salt. That's non-pre-salt. But these two basins are the most important basins offshore Brazil. We have Potiguar, Sergipe Alagoas. Producing Sergipe Alagoas, majority is onshore. Potiguar, majority is onshore because our basins that divide between onshore and offshore. Camamu, something onshore also, and Espírito Santo the same. But Campos and Santos is 100% offshore. Actually, Campos and Santos, they don't have any part of the basin onshore. From Espírito Santo above, we have some part of the basins onshore also, but below Campos, Santos, and Pelotas here is 100% offshore. So I'm going to start with the equatorial margin. These are the basins as I mentioned. There is not much exploration going on right now, but well, we are going to talk about this later on. Here, the evolution is that we can see here the evolution, the separation with Africa is a transformant basin with several transformant faults. I forgot the name in English, escalera, uma escada. We have the basins are divided by these steps. Yeah, steps. The basins are divided by these steps. Every time you have a step, you have a different basin. So this is very well pronounced on the equatorial margin. The play, well, there is a few proven plays, but in general is upper Cretaceous sandy turbidites in deep, ultra deep waters. Well, the deep, ultra deep is not yet proven, but we have the quality of the reservoirs from the wells that were drilled. The reservoirs, the quality of the sands are really good porosity. Source rock, it's some of them are not proved, some of them are postulated, but in general is believed to be lapstream shales from the Aptian and marine shales. The lapstream is proved onshore, mainly onshore. In the marine shales, there is Albion to Turonian. We have a few wells already proving, but we don't have a good field proving yet this second source rock. The basin has several correlations with fields discovered already on West Africa, and as we can say today in Guyana, we have Exxon has several discoveries in Guyana, and we started having other discoveries in the equatorial and South America, but in Brazil don't have any big discoveries. We are going to see that's because of we don't have any new exploration. This is why we don't have any new discoveries, in my opinion. We have only activity going on in Ceará and Potiguar basins. So, but the basin has exploratory potential. Here is the number of wells drilled in the equatorial margin, considering all basins. So this is here. This one is starting 1998 to 2015. So the last well drilled in equatorial margin was in 2015. Several issues regarding economics, regarding crisis. The last well was supposed to be drilled 2020, 21, but we have the pandemics and then it changed. So there's several things going on here. Another thing is the environmental license here is difficult because of the Amazonas River and everything. All the offshore here is protected, environmentally protected. So it's very difficult to have a drilling permit for this area. But it's possible. This area has been drilled before. I'm showing Ceará and Potiguar, these two basins here where we have exploratory blocks. This picture is from 2 years ago, but the picture changing here, mainly in Ceará Basin. Some blocks have been delivered by the operator, so we have just these two and probably these two here. And the government was trying to sell and to bid these areas in purple. Here they are trying to bid these purple areas. Ceará, we have just these 4 fields producing, but in the last year they stopped because Petrobras stopped producing because it was just a small production. So they shut this production. But here in Potiguar, these near shore fields, they are still producing, but here we have several blocks already acquired in exploration phase. Here is just Potiguar Basin is just the zoom of this area here. We have some wells. I'm showing the wells here. We can see that the onshore is the evolution of the onshore is a little bit different. I'm not gonna explain here because it's gonna be more time here. We have a few discoveries made by Petrobras. So this is very interesting. We have discoveries from 2013 to 2014. They still have the blocks and they acquired this block and other blocks nearby. So we are waiting to understand if these discoveries are going to turn into economic in fields, if they are going to be economic or not. But as today, we have just exploratory blocks in the deep water of equatorial margin. We have also some disinvestment of Petrobras that other companies in Brazil acquired, so mainly onshore, but these offshore, they have been sold in the past. So we have other companies, but most of the production onshore, I think Petrobras have left almost all this basin to other companies. I think now we go to the most interesting, or where the most of the oil from Brazil comes, that is the passive margin in Brazil. The basins are Pernambuco, Parnaíba, Sergipe, Alagoas, Camamu, Almada, Jequitinhonha, Cumurixatiba, Mucuri, Espírito Santo, Campos, Santos, and Pelotas. The main ones are Sergipe, Alagoas, Espírito Santo, Campos, and Santos. Pelotas has almost no exploration, but there is small or almost no potential as our knowledge today. So there is nothing here. Pernambuco, Paraíba, the same, and almost no exploration. We have just 2 wells here, and Pelotas we have, I believe, 7 or 8 wells. Camamu, Almada, Jequitinhonha, Cumurixatiba has some potential, but still the only blocks here are 100% Petrobras. The company is more riskier to explore here. And Mucuri and part of Cumurixatiba is, we can see there, this high here is a volcanic high. You can see the shallow water go more proeminent here is a volcanic high. So everything that is in these 2 basins are volcanic. So it's very difficult. We don't believe there is anything sedimentary here to be explored. So, well, nobody pay attention to Cumurixatiba, Mucuri, Pernambuco, Paraíba, and Pelotas in Brazil. And the international oil companies only looks for Espírito Santo, Santos, and Campos. Here are, just to give a better idea, here are the exploratory blocks in gray, and in green the production fields. So we can see we have only production fields offshore, Sergipe, Alagoas, Espírito Santo, Campos, and Santos. But as I say, in Jequitinhonha, Camamu, Almada, we have some offshore blocks in exploration. These 2 blocks here in Pernambuco, Paraíba was Petrobras, but they delivered to the government. They are not in exploration anymore. This is the evolution. As I say, the phases, the tectonic sedimentary phase are very well defined. We have the pre-rift phase that's before the breakup. The Sin Rift there was during the breakup of Gondwana, the post-rift just after the breakup, and then the drift phase when the continent was separated from Africa. So here you can see we have the breakup around 125, 120 million years ago. Before we have this lake deposited here. The environment was a lacustrine environment. We have here is the beginning of the passive margin, and here more or less is the end of Brazil. So in this portion of this, why Pelotas Basin is not considered a good basin, because in Pelotas Basin we have, in the north of Pelotas Basin we have a high that stopped the lake in this lacustrine environment, this pre-rift phase. So we have the best source rock of offshore Brazil is this, that was a lake that extended in the whole the whole basins in the Pacific margin. So this came the best source rocks. The Sea Rift is where we find the pre-salt. The post-rift, we have some good reservoirs in the actually the post-rift, as we consider today, is the seal of the Sea Rift phase, because we have salt in some basins, and the drift are reservoirs for turbidites and other carbonates in the deep water that are not pre-salt. The pre-salt reservoir is Sea Rift, and the drift is the reservoirs for the non-pre-salt fields. So as I say, the lacustrine carbonates with good reservoir properties, actually the lacustrine carbonates are good reservoir, good source rock properties. I changed this slide and I forgot to change this word here. I will go more to the detail of the how this is based on the pre-salt, but if you take the salt, is almost the same in several basins. We have the basement, the basement, most of them is magmatic basement. We have a lower rift, upper rift. This is more defined in pre-salt fields, but we have the rift phase, and then the sag is the Sea Rift, and the salt is the post-rift. The salt is the post-rift, and post-salt is the drift phase. But here they want to show only the pre-salt, and so to show how is extended the pre-salt in the basins. But just to have a general overview of the basin geology. I will start with Sergipe. Let me come back. I will start with Sergipe, Alagoas, explain a little bit how it is today. Then I will talk about just a little bit about Espírito Santo, then Campos and Santos. This is Sergipe, Alagoas. We have two different areas or phases, as we can say here. We have these blocks on the left that are majority of, they are operated by Petrobras, and Petrobras has majority of the interest in these blocks, and they are in development phase. They already have discoveries, they are economic, and Petrobras already declared the commerciality, and they are going to start producing, I believe, 2026. And these are blocks acquired after 2017 by this. All the blocks are the consortium between Exxon and Alta, that's a Brazilian company, and Murphy, that's a medium small company from USA, and they are trying to target the same reservoir that's here. Here is a deposit in the drift phase. We have some good sandstone in fluvial environment, but these are more proximal river phase, and then they are expecting a more distal, maybe turbidites in this section here. But there is no well until today in this position, so this is an area we are going to see some exploration. And here we are going, these two green are producing, and this other gray, they are going to be start producing really soon. This is the wells for the discovery of the field. This field is the size of 1 billion barrels. They are a really huge field in Sergipe, Alagoas, and this is from Petrobras, that they are expecting the first oil in 2026. And then in the first block, and then in the second block or second area, they are expecting after 2016, they are going to be 2 FPSOs producing, 2 facilities producing in water depth that is more than 2,000 meters water depth. And now moving to Espírito Santo, Campos and Santos. Here is where everyone in Brazil knows a lot, because as you can see, the blue dots are exploratory wells. I'm not considering the production wells, but only exploratory wells. We can see that we have several wells in these basins, mainly because when Petrobras started to explore the basin in the 70s, they saw that the oil was more prone to find oil in campus basin, offshore campus basin. So they have extensive drilling campaign in the 70s and 80s in campus. Santos, they realized that the shallow water, this dark blue is shallow water, and this light blue is deep water. The shallow water in Santos Basin wasn't that prolific, but the shallow water in campus was really, really good. So they concentrate out the drilling before the 1997 in this part of the basin. So most of the non-pre-salt fields producing offshore are these ones here, and these ones here in Espírito Santo. Well, in Espírito Santo has some part offshore. You can see here, this is the part of the basin that's producing onshore, but offshore we have this, and we have these blocks to be explored in exploration. And in Campos and Santos, everything that's green here is pre-salt. Well, exception, no, everything here is pre-salt in the deep water. In shallow water, everything that's green in Santos Basin are non-pre-salt. And here in Campos, we have a division. Most of the fields are non-pre-salt, but some of the fields, they have both. They have post-salt and pre-salt production. So in Campos, we have this division, but in Santos, or is non-pre-salt or is pre-salt. We don't have both at the same location. It only happens in Campos Basin that the same area produce in a shallower area, a turbidite, for example, that's normal here. And then they drill deeper in the recent years and discover a pre-salt field below a node field. So this happens mainly in this north part here, but in other parts here also. They have the fields producing by 10, 20 years, and then they discover the pre-salt below, drilling deeper. Just to explain how not always we have all these blocks to be explored. Actually, if we go back to 2016, there were almost no blocks, only these few blocks in orange in exploration. Most of them doesn't exist anymore. And there was no activity in 2016, and then after the bid rounds, we have increase in several blocks. I would say that everything that's located here inside or close to this polygon they are targeting pre-salt prospects. This in the south, I'm not sure what they are targeting. Karum here, that's another company's offshore, is non-pre-salt, but what Shell and Total is looking here, I'm not 100% sure. But with the exception of this, everything here, they are targeting pre-salt. The pre-salt that's outside the polygon has a risk because they are more distant. The geology started getting more complicated, and even the seismic are not. I have been working in this area in the past, so I saw the seismic, and it's very difficult to see the reflectors in the seismic as we see here. Here we can see very well. We can point the finger where the discovery will happen. It's really good. It's really interesting. But when you start to go here deeper, the geology changes. It starts to get a little bit more complicated below the salt, and the seismic doesn't happen. So this is why they are shooting new seismic. From the last 2-3 years, they are shooting new 3D seismic here to help the guys who acquire the fields in this position. And in this basin, that's Santos and Campos Basin, we have the majors worldwide. We are missing a few ones because they have been the past in Brazil, and then don't want to be here anymore. It's not core for them, but most of the companies, the major companies worldwide, are here in Brazil in these basins. As I say, these blocks here that are exploratory, they have a higher exploratory risk for pre-salt because of the pre-salt geology. They start to get more complicated in this position, and the seismic, at least the last seismic we had, they weren't that good, and we have a risk of source rock. The source rock here is proved for the pre-salt. The post-salt is the same source rock that is the lacustrine before the breakup of Gondwana. So we have a good source rock from the entire basin, lacustrine type 1, kerogen, really good source rock that is filling the pre-salt and post-salt fields. But when we start to go here, we don't know, we cannot see on the seismic, and we don't have any wells drilling the source rock. So, and the recent discoveries on these blocks are showing that they have gas, not oil. So we don't know if the source rock is here, but is higher temperature because it's deeper, or if the gas is migrating from the nearby kitchen. So this is why I say is more complicated. There are several questions to be answered in this area, but in this area here, after more than 10 years exploration in the pre-salt, everyone, now the companies understand very well this geology. These fields that are producing are mainly post-salt fields in shallower sections, mainly turbidites. A few of them have deeper section with pre-salt, but the mainly production are post-salt. I would say these fields here are an exception. They have a different, it's a cluster of fields from Petrobras. Petrobras, I think, is the only operator in all these fields because they are before the opening of the market, these discoveries. And here they are producing in the post-salt, but the majority of the production is coming from the pre-salt. So this is a field that started as a post-salt and now it's a pre-salt field. These other ones that we are seeing here, it's 100% pre-salt. There is no doubt about that. The blue ones, the green, light green, are already producing, and the other ones are just being exploration. These are the last activities. We have gas wells, oil wells. We have this well, I don't know the result yet. I didn't check the result yet. And we have 2 dry wells. This well, let's see, was this block here that encountered only CO2 because we have some issue with presence of CO2, gas carbonic in this region. Some fields, this block has a lot, and these fields here are producing, but 20%, and this one here is 40, and this tree here is around 10 to 20%. It's not that much for exploration, but this one they encounter only CO2, so they relinquish the block. And this one, I think, is dry. They have oil. We understand that the company say they have oil in the past, but there was an issue with the seal. It didn't seal it very well, and the oil probably migrated to shallower sediments. But was a good indicative that there was some oil shows in this, or some, I would say, some signature that the oil was in this part. And as I say, the majority of the discovery in this more riskier part is being gas. Well, some of them are oil, but inside here, everything is oil. And I'm not sure, but this one probably they already say that it was oil. I just need to confirm, but I'm not 100% sure. Also in the shallow water, we have this investment of Petrobras. So these fields in the beginning was 100% Petrobras because it was before the opening of the market, and then Petrobras are investing a lot in pre-salt because pre-salt, the cost of producing from pre-salt is very high. A facility, for example, to produce from a pre-salt field in deep waters can cost more than $1 billion. So this is very cost intensive. So they are disinvesting from old fields that are producing just a little bit and are not economic for them. They are selling to smaller companies, international and national oil companies. So these companies are buying these fields. They bought this one this year here, another company, and they are investing in producing more and extending the life of these fields. In the, I'm not saying is shallow water. I can say it's shallow water fields, but I think it's around 2 to 500 meters water depth. Just talking, I think it's important to talk a little bit of the pre-salt to people that are not familiar, because I think everyone in Brazil more or less is familiar or have saw a talk about the pre-salt. This is the, I'll say, the generic model, just very simple, that we have basement highs, the source rock just below the reservoir here, the deep source rocks in the deeper lakes that have been affected by the tectonics, by the rift tectonics, and then is migrating through these tectonic faults to these basement highs, where when the carbonates, the carbonated platform have deposited, just above that we have the salt. That's a thicker column of salt. That's a really good seal. And this is it's a really simple play. This is a paper from Angola, from Kwanza Basin. That's the other side of the Atlantic. And the geology, I'm gonna say, I have looked at this paper. If you look at the sidewall core pictures from this and sidewall core from pre-salt Brazil, is exactly the same. So it's exactly the same geology, but we just need to mirror this to Brazil. If we mirror this exactly the same model we have to Brazil, with the source rock in the deeper lakes, and then in the basement highs, we have these platforms, carbonated platforms. In some cases, we have isolated buildups. The platform are the bigger fields, and we have some fields, well, I would say they are also big comparing to other fields worldwide, but compared to the pre-salt, they are a little bit smaller, but they are isolated buildup. So we have these two cases of the entire platform, carbonated platforms producing as Tupi or Lula field. That's one of the biggest in Brazil, one of the biggest in the world. And then we have isolated buildups producing also. This is a chart, stratigraphic chart from Santos Basin. That's the main basin for the pre-salt. This part is the basement. That's the rift this here. I'm pointing the mouse to the division of the rift phase. So the rift phase go out this part here. The source rock is this position here. This is the pre-rift. This is the basement. We have wells drilled here. And then we have the synrift, that is this part over here where we have the carbonate. Well, is this part here. We have the carbonate, and the post-rift is really small here. It's just the size of the pointer here. That's the salt. The salt was deposited in a small amount of time, but has deposited a thicker section. And everything above is the drifty section that happened after the breakup and during the evolution of the Atlantic Ocean. Some reservoirs for Campos Basin deep water are here in turbidites, in the deeper section of Campos Basin. These are rocks, sidewall core samples of the microbial carbonates. Pre-salt has two kind of reservoirs. The main one is microbial carbonates, and another one is coquinas. But the microbial one is the main one that we find in all the fields. So we can see the sidewall core. I believe this is a core or a sidewall core, I'm not sure. And this is thin section, and this is another older paper showing some well samples showing this. Actually, this picture was before the discovery of the pre-salt, as we say today. This was published in 2004, but the idea of the reservoir already existed, but there was they didn't believe it would work because this well is in shallow water and the discovery was in deep water. So, but the understanding of the reservoir, more or less, Petrobras already knew it. But here you can see these microbial carbonates. There is some discussion to understand if they are biological or no, or not biological, but well, in the end, we have a good reservoir here. This a detailed section in front of a seismic showing, I believe this is 2P field, one of the biggest fields, showing a well drilled. Everything here, I'm pointing the mouse, is a carbonate platform. So the field extends through all of this. And this one here, I think is 2P. Yeah, this one is 2P or Lula field, they changed the name. From here to here is a platform, is a carbonate platform. So everything, of course, the quality of the reservoir is not the same now, all of this, but we have a reservoir in all these sections here. And then the source rock migrated oil through these deeper portions of the basin. Just this from Libra, it's from the government publication when they were selling this block. So here, this is salt. You can see very well the salt here is a strong reflector here. And this reflector here is the base of salt. They're finishing here. Then for this part here is starting to get more complex. We have some theories here, but there is no well drilling in this position here. But we can see some rift here very well. Another one here. This is where the source rock is. And everything above this line here that I'm drawing, everything that's above this line that I'm passing, this reflector, is carbonates reservoir. This carbonate, that's microbial carbonates platform. So we have a thicker section of carbonate platform in Libra that now is a field. This part of the field is producing and the other ones are in development, but the main part here is already producing. And these are the fields that are producing today in the pre-salt. We have Lula, that's the first one. Then Sapinhoá was the second one. Then Lapa, third one. Búzios is just started this year, really producing with a facility. Mero, that actually is this one, they changed the name after it started producing. And we have another of oil fields that are here that need to start production. These ones here, they will start production soon. And we have these other ones, they're not producing that much from the pre-salt, but this one, the Whales Park or Parque das Baleias in Campos Basin, that's produced a little bit more. And I think it was this I had to show. If someone has some question, I can answer or explain a little bit better some parts.
Okay, thank you very much for the talk. I think it was very interesting. We have some questions. I think, Mariana, you had your hand raised. I don't know if you want to open your mic. I don't know if you are still there. Okay, so we have some questions from Ricardo Astini. Ricardo, do you want me to read your questions, or if you want to open your mic, you can do that as you prefer. Okay.
I think I open here. I can see
Okay.
the question.
Okay.
I would like to explain why you didn't drill under the salt horizon before the 90s. Yes, in Brazil they drilled, but in shallow water. In deep water, when I say deep water, is more than 1.5 kilometers water depth. We didn't have technology and wasn't economic, and they didn't expect that this carbonate platform extended through deep water. So was a mixture of economics, because was economics, technology. There was no technology before the years 2000, the earliest 2000, there is no technology to drill in this water depth. And then the understanding of the play, they didn't believe it, that this reservoir would be there. I would say some companies try to drill below the salt, but some parts the salt is, I'm gonna say here, some salts, they have been, they drilled more than 2,000 meters, 2 kilometers of salt. Imagine, no one in the 90s would drill 2 kilometers of salt just to try to see if the reservoir was there. What would be like too much money to spend, and the salt is not something easy to drill because the site is, it can move. It's not solid. Is in a plastic state. So for the drilling team, it's difficult, and they didn't have technology. So Petrobras developed the technology and to drill this thicker section of salt. Some fields can drill up to 3, I believe some well drilled 4,000 meters of salt. This is before year 2000s, would be impossible to drill this. The next one, what were the pots before and what gave you new clues in order to drill the pre-salt? Actually, pre-salt, who discovered was Petrobras, because Petrobras had all the information in the basin. They have a few clues because one guy in Petrobras, they published a paper explaining about this interval, this seam rift interval, and the distribution in all the margin in Brazil, and they explain onshore, offshore, and after this there was some discussion that maybe would be interesting to see if it was going, so it was an evolution of understanding. They already knew it about the source rock, they knew it that the source rock was there, but the main question was the reservoir. So what happened? In 2000, they started drilling in 2005, the well, and then they finished in 2006. They choose a portion that has just a small amount of salt. They didn't take that risk. They just drill a place that would be, if it was a failure, would be a cheaper failure. So they just tried. So was this, because at this time in 2006, the oil barrel was above $100. So everyone was expanding a little bit more and risking, was doing more risky exploration because the barrel was really high, and was for the oil company was okay. If I spend a little bit more, there was no issue. This is why Petrobras drilled it, because of the oil price and because an evolution of the understanding, and they just tried. Was more or less this, and in the end it was correct. But I would say it took 5, 6, even more years to understand the play as we understand today, because it's very complex to do in one position to understanding the whole basin. So it took several wells, dry wells, to understand the pre-salt. But today I think we are in the main area, we understand very well, and in the deeper area we are starting again in the same like a new exploration phase, because we really don't know what to expect. What's the lake source? Unit name, kind of lake, and age. Let me share the presentation. I think it's going to be easier to see. Just one moment.
Particularly to the north of the Pelotas Basin, the big lake that you showed over there in your picture. You were talking about the big lake occurring within the central part of the basin.
Is Albion, if I'm not mistaken, it's Albion Aptian. The age of the lake, and here is Pelotas Basin. What's inside Pelotas?
I think you're not sharing.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, here is Pelotas Basin. Just in the north of Pelotas. Well, actually, what divides Pelotas Basin from Santos Basin is this high. So everything is open sea. So already started. We have the the magmatic extrusion in the open sea, and then start deposition of the passive margin. But here we have a pre-rift phase before the opening here with the completely open with Africa, when we have like the completely opening of the ocean, like around this time, around 115. Well, there's some discussions about the age, but around this time we have starting some marine incursions, and then around this time here we have like a full opening, and then open sea in this part. But before we have in this open sea, we have this lake here that was deposited this. Well, we need to imagine that this lake was during a rift phase. We have a lot of tectonics during this phase that was happening. We have this lake deposit during a rifting phase, so some parts have been developing more, developing less, and in these highs, in these horsts of this faulting, this tectonics, we have the structure was in a shallow lake environment, and this shallow lake environment allowed to develop the carbonated platforms as we understand today. And just in the pause rift, after some time of slow tectonics, we have a very arid phase in this area, where it was almost no, as I say, no water incoming in the lake, and then we have this deposition of the salt, and then just after the breakup we started the drift phase. But how the pre-salt is start before the breakup, the complete breakup of this high in the top of Pelotas Basin.
Okay, the next is
I would
about
say
pre-salt.
the unit name is going to change. Each basin has a different name for the same geological unit, so every basin is a different name. You are making reference into the central segment. This question: the pre-salt carbonates are source rocks or just reservoir or both? The source rock are, well, this is a good question. Everything's carbonate, but when we say pre-salt carbonates, normally we are talking about the reservoirs, but the source rock are shales, but they are carbonaceous shales. They are not siliciclastic shales. They are carbonaceous shales. But everything is a carbonatic content. But when we talk about carbonates, pre-salt carbonates, as just without any other information, we're just talking about the reservoir, because they are microbial and coquinas, and both are carbonates. What are the changes you observe and mention it as more complicated to the east or deeper water settings? The seismic is the main one, and the geologically speaking is the structural part. Here, let me put in the other. I think this slide. No, yeah, this one. Everything that's actually the government didn't put this line. Like, looks like a random line. Well, actually some parts is random, but this part of the line is not a really random line. It's not, I'll just put it here, because if you look the seismic, the structural environment, it's not that simple to see. You need to see a really strong line, a really line that go from the shallow water until really deep to see these changes. But here the structure, the rift phase, the structures are very, not say simple, but they have the impact of the rift phase was small. And here in this, from what we saw on the seismic, the effects of the rifting phase, the faults are way deeper. The displacement of the faults are higher. And if you have the displacement of the faults higher, we don't know if in the top of these displacements we are going to see development of reservoirs. And if the source rock was too deep, you can have gas, as we saw today. And even in some seismic, we don't see this lake phase. We are in doubt. We actually don't see lake phase being developed here. We just see the lake phase here. So there is a question: if the lake is here, is in a way deeper environment than this one. So we are going to expect more gas, probably oil, but oil with more gas. But we are not even sure if that source rocks here, because we cannot see on the seismic, and there is no well drilled in this position before the bidding round. So I would say it's the main risk. The salt is here. The salt, the seal in the petroleum system, we can see the seal. The reservoir we can see, but we put a risk, and the other risk we put is the source rock. So this is why they are drilling, but they are drilling just nearby this limit. This more distal, they are waiting more time to see the results to decide what to do, because it's the water depth is even higher, and having a high, it can reach up to 4,000 meters water depth. So it's way more complicated to drill in these conditions. So yeah, it's complicated. This is why they're taking more time to drill these really deeper sections, but geologically they are the same. Everything here outside the polygon, the pre-salt polygon, is the same, more or less geology, more fractures in the rift phase, and more displacement on the faults, on the normal faults.
Okay,
The
so
next-
we are running out of time, so we are just going to go with the last question. I don't know, Guilherme, if you are okay sharing your email so people can ask you more questions. Now let's go with the last one so we can end the talk. So the last question is, what are the unknown features still to be improved in the pre-salt context according to your knowledge?
I think the last unknown features is to understand this external area, to understand if everything is gas or some part is oil, and if the gas is going to be economic or not. And I think this is more to understand this geology and economics of the discoveries in these pre-salt fields that outside of the polygon. Inside of the polygon, there is no much questions to be answered. In the geological point of view, of course, in the production, there is some points that could be improved, but not in geological understanding. I think inside of the pre-salt polygon here, everything is well known, well understood. Another question, this is just nobody actually mentioned it, but there is a possibility of the extension in the Espírito Santo basin of pre-salt. We are waiting just a few blocks to be drilled here by Petrobras and actually by our company, Repsol. But the first one is going to be drilled by Petrobras to see if because we have salt here, but nobody drilled before the salt layer in a correct environment, like looking for pre-salt. So it's going to be the first time in next years, and maybe this could extend the pre-salt play to another basin, because today is only Santos Campos, and maybe we can explore here. So here is going to be a new exploration area, but for today as it is, we don't consider pre-salt outside these basins.
Okay, thank you very much. In the chat, we have a lot of congratulations messages and people from all around Argentina for here. So I think that's it. Thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. Thank you for the talk. It was very interesting, and we are looking forward to see you all guys in the next talk. Okay, thank you.